All right, guys. What ending to what was mostly a really disappointing game from the Utah Jazz. Let's talk about all of it and what happened. It's the Hoops Nerd post game show. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the fight. Not a little bit, maybe a lot. I don't know. We'll talk about the refs too and kind of what happened. But first, let's just give credit to the Indiana Pacers. They came into this game back end of a back-to-back in altitude, and they came in and they just kind of bullied the Jazz. This was not a very impressive showing from Utah, who came into this game looking like the tired. You wouldn't like if someone didn't know who played the night before, you probably would have guessed the Jazz were the team playing on the back end of a back-to-back, because Indiana came in and they just took it to the Jazz. They out rebounded the Jazz, especially on the offensive boards. The Jazz just could not defensive rebound in this one, which is a problem the Jazz had last year at the end in the playoffs and things, and it reared its head today. Kind of a red flag, to be honest. And it's kind of interesting because Rudy Gobert's had such an impressive rebounding season, but not tonight, at least. Tonight, let's see, Rudy Gobert ends with 11 rebounds, but he's been averaging around like 16 to 18 at times. So anyway, so you got to give credit to the Pacers who do play really big. They have a lot of size, where you start with Domantas Sabonis and Myles Turner, so maybe it shouldn't be that surprising that they did really well on the boards. The guy for the Indiana Pacers, really the player of the game was TJ McConnell, who absolutely just took it to the Jazz. Tonight, TJ McConnell was 10 of 14 from the field, 1 for 1 from three. He doesn't take a lot of threes, but the one he took, he made. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 21 points. I mean, he was just a monster tonight for the Indiana Pacers. Just a monster, And, Jazz fans are mad about the refs, and rightfully so. We'll talk about that, but I mean, the Jazz just didn't play with a lot of life. Like, honestly, the fight at the end of the game was the most fight I saw from anyone on this team outside of like Donovan Mitchell. You just didn't really see a lot of fight. Maybe a little from Royce, but he's a defender. Not a lot. And so you just got to give credit to the Pacers, who played really hard and played really well. Malcolm Brogdon had 30 points in this one. He had 9 rebounds and 4 assists. He was just awesome. 8 for 9 from the free throw line. I mean, really interesting. And the Jazz fans are I don't know. Maybe we should just start talking about the refs a little bit. But I just wanted to make sure to give credit to the Pacers that they won this game. Whether the refs were good in this game or not, the Jazz just did not come out in this one and did not play well. They just didn't. And the Pacers did, and that's why they lost. Now, we're going to talk about the refs, and the refs did suck. Oh my gosh. Kenny, wow. Elliot Matson, baby Elliot Matson, horrible refs. Yes. Austin R. Grant finally made a live chat. It's nice to have the editor extraordinaire in the chat tonight. Pacers outplayed the Jazz for sure. I'm worried about this Jazz team. Yes, there are a few red flags, and one is those rebounding issues. Finally, Austin R. Grant, so tired of the Jazz coasting in the first half of games. Yeah, it's just the Jazz do look like a team that's just kind of coasting through the season, and there's some things that are frustrating that are going on that continue to happen, and I'm a little worried. And I know it's like, let's see, the Jazz are now, 8-4, 12 games in, but now we're starting to see a little bit of pretty big sample size here of some things. First off, the refs were bad because they just weren't calling certain things. If you're an NBA official, you need to make sure that you're calling fouls, especially when you notice 2 guys are going at it. And Myles Turner and Rudy Gobert were going at it this whole game. And there were a few things that happened that these NBA officials need to be aware of. If you saw, there was that one dunk where Rudy Gobert dunked the ball went off Myles Turner's face and got a stare down from Rudy, and he was pissed about it. I'm going to actually go through this again, although I have to wait because of NBA League Pass rules, and I wouldn't mind breaking down this fight because in some ways it was a little bit funny. I think Rudy was trying to grab him and kind of throw him to the ground, but Myles Turner's really big and strong, so he wasn't able to. So it ended up turning into wingspan fighting. I don't know. It was kind of bizarre. But I think Rudy tried to throw him down. Myles Turner's too big and strong, so then they ended up just being locked up and then got separated. And then it was brouhaha. But basically what needs to happen is that NBA officials need to be aware of what's going on. And if there is two guys that are fighting and going at it, you need to call fouls on it. You just do. Let's see. We got a new rookie. Vombauer. C. Vombauer. 18. I love it. Vombauer. Welcome to rookie, my friend. 18. I like it. Is that Peyton Manning? I can't remember. Welcome to rookie. A rookie with promise. You're welcome here. I'm excited to see you in the chat. So anyways, why the NBA officials are dumb sometimes is because you've got to notice when there's stuff like this going on, because then you get emotion like this coming out and you get guys ejected that shouldn't have been ejected. Honestly, why Donovan Mitchell was ejected, I don't know. That's crazy town. But if you see Rudy Gobert and Myles Turner are going at it, and they're going at it all game, and by the way, Rudy Gobert was getting hacked by that Advijad guy. What was his name? The guy that was like yelling at his own coaches last year. What was his name? He got 4 fouls in like 5 minutes. Bedadzi. I forgot how to say his name. Bedadzi. Anyways, in 6 minutes, 25 seconds, he had 4 fouls. He was just going out there and he was hacking Gobert. And Gobert, one thing that Rudy needs to start working on is fight through it, you know? And I wonder if there's a little bit of a scouting report out there that you can bully Rudy Gobert and get in his head. You know, there might be a little bit of that where if you go hack him and you send in Bedadzi or whatever, however you say his name, and he's hacking Gobert, Gobert's going to get frustrated and he starts complaining to the refs and he kind of, pouts as he runs down the floor, and now he's out of the game, you know? And so there might be a little bit of that. And so you can see why Rudy's mad if he's getting fouled, but Rudy's got to fight through it. Austin R. Grant, $9.99. My friend, thank you so much. These losses might be what forces Quinn to be put under pressure and the front office to consider taking a 3-point darling for a wing bit, trading a 3-point darling for a wing D. Rudy Gay taking possessions from Jay-Z will be nice. Or from JC will be nice. Yes, Rudy Gay is going to come in. I hope Rudy Gay's good. You know, it's going to be like, but by the way, Austin, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And I actually do. I was talking to, some people send me DMs, and I talk to people. Some people from the channel send me DMs, and some people from Twitter. I'm not going to name names, but they send me DMs because they say the things to me that they don't want to say public. And I'm okay with that. Guess what? I'm going to say what I think on Twitter. And you know what? Some people get mad, but you're always going to get honesty with me. That's why people sometimes get mad at me on this channel, because I'll say what I want. So anyways, thank you, Austin. I agree. The Jazz need to make a trade for some sort of wing defender. There's a lot of guys out there. And after tonight, I think you definitely need to think about your defensive rebounding, because the Jazz got killed with this in the playoffs. And, people will say, oh, the Pacers are 4-8. How did they lose to a 4-8 team? A lot of the games the Pacers have lost this year have been really close. Like just bad luck, ball didn't bounce their way. This is a team that's much better than their record. And Rick Carlisle's a good coach. I'm actually surprised they're 4-8. But they're like a team that could be 8-4, and you wouldn't be surprised because they just had a few things not go their way. Will Bowden, $5. Thank you, Will. I appreciate it. You're the man. Terrible night for us. Hope no suspensions for the Miami game. Or let's see, for the Miami game. Or maybe you mean Indiana. But worried about us, but emotions are running high. Maybe this is the wake-up call we needed. Maybe. I hope so, and I agree, Will. Like, I hope there's not, like, big-time suspensions. But honestly, the fight at the end of the game was a little more than I saw the whole game, because, and going back to what I was saying about Rudy, is there might be like a thing out there that says, hack him, send out Bedadzi, however you say his name. I hate it when I don't know how to say their name. Go hack him and just get him mad, and you'll take him out of the game mentally. And I think there's a little bit of that out there, because we've seen it with Miami. Miami bullied Rudy, and he kind of just got mentally checked out because he wasn't getting getting pushed around or getting fouled or whatever. And he doesn't get the calls, and he looks at the refs as he's running down the floor, and he mentally checks out. And Rudy's got to work on that. Rudy's got to figure out, instead of complaining of the refs, instead of looking at the refs, instead of like shaking your head and talking about getting pushed off and all these things, fight back, foul them, give a hard foul to them. Force the ref's hand. Because what happens this game is Rudy was complaining this whole game, And the refs did do a bad job, by the way. They did not do a good job of controlling this game. They did not, because honestly, part of what the ref's job is to create order. You know, you need these refs to create order in the system. Otherwise, if it's just, if it's just backyard basketball and guys can do whatever they want, people are going to get mad. And that's why you have fights in the gym, and things like that. Your referees need to create order. And when someone like Ed Malloy, who has had way too much hairspray, and some of that hairspray has somehow dissipated down and he sniffed it in for about 50 years, has not allowed him to improve as an NBA official. The guy has so much hairspray, you pull a splinter out of his head. It feels like a wood shard, his hair. The guy doesn't know how to ref a game. But what they need to do is create order. They need to create order. And they didn't. So when you have two guys that just are frustrated and then just start getting chippy, and then bit by bit, it just builds up to what happened at the end of this game. If they would have called the foul on that play, this fight wouldn't have happened, Or if they would have been paying attention to Rudy pulling him down, because, by the way, Rudy was basically at fault for this fight. It was Rudy's fault. He kind of initiated it. If they call the foul or call the double foul or even a tech on Rudy or something, then this doesn't happen. But because the refs do nothing, the players feel like they have to take things into their own hand, because these guys are proud guys and they're going to do what they feel like. If they're going to get disrespected and the refs aren't going to hold that order of the game, then they're going to take matters into their own hands. And that's what happened tonight. And that's why Ed Malloy is a moron and Joey Acosta is an idiot. He's stupid. And these guys get paid way too much, by the way, for how poor they do. Let's see. Michael Whelan, $4.99. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. We can't keep saying small sample size when it's the same problems from the last couple of years. That's a good point. Because, we can say, how are they different this year and last year? Well, it's the same players. It's the same coach. They're doing the same kind of system we saw, I mean, really, the difference this year has been Eric Paschall has been awesome. He has been really nice pickup. Hassan Whiteside has been awesome. Just an awesome pickup. And just a massive upgrade, honestly. If we're being honest, Hassan Whiteside has been a huge upgrade. And maybe one of the big reasons this Jazz team has the record it does. Everyone talks about how we've been playing poorly, and that's, partly true. Although Donovan's having like an all-NBA season right now. Holy smokes. Last 4 games, Donovan's like 30 points per game, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and like 1.5 steals per game or something like that. Donovan's on a tear, and tonight was no different. But that Whiteside signing has been huge, because this Jazz team has honestly been a little underwhelming. There are some red flags out there, and tonight was one of them. Will Bowden, rest in peace, Izzy. By the way, can I just thank you, Will, for that, and also a reminder, guys, we have to do better. We've talked about this before, but I have 4 kids. Teach your kids to call out other kids when they say the N-word or bully other kids, especially kids of color, in this state especially. It's just horrible. It's horrible. Please, everyone, sit your kids down and teach them about how horrible the N-word is, and also to just tell their friends to not support that and call it out when they can. And I know it's hard. It's really hard, but we've got to do better. I mean, bullying, I don't know if you're ever going to get rid of bullying in general, but can we at least teach our kids that these things are horrible and going on and they need to stop? And by the way, this stuff, I wouldn't be surprised, because they had a thing at the beginning of the game. Donovan Mitchell was tweeting about this girl who, it's just so horrible, guys. It's so horrible to think that a 10-year-old girl getting bullied like this, and teachers who were being told that this was happening did nothing. And there's like people saying that maybe even were a part of it. I don't know all the details, but to get to the point where a 10-year-old girl commits suicide, guys, I mean, that is just, there's just nothing more horrible. I just can't imagine anything more horrible. I just can't. It's just terrible. I honestly, it makes me emotional. I just can't imagine my 4 kids. I don't know how I could go on if that happened with one of my kids. I don't know, and for that parent to feel so helpless and to go for help and then not get it and to have the school district not do anything. I mean, it's horrible, guys. It's absolutely devastating. It's there are just not words to describe how horrible that is. And Donovan was tweeting about it. Joe Ingles was tweeting about it. Joe Ingles talked to the parent and heard the story, and I'm sure it's horrific, and I'm sure it's just terrible. It's just terrible. And I'm sure that emotion was in this game. I'm sure it was. I mean, honestly, you're playing basketball. Who cares? The little girl committed suicide from being bullied because of the color of her skin, and no one did anything. Kids can be the worst, but you would expect that the grown-ups and the adults around there would actually do something. You would think, and they didn't. And that's why there's a federal investigation because of all this stuff going on, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. And so everyone, if you can, go donate to the GoFundMe if you can. But can we please teach our kids to call that stuff out and stop it? And just, and this is getting political, but if our government is not going to teach kids in school about these things, can we at least teach our kids, please, please? Anyways, I'm sure that played a part in this whole thing, and I'm sure it's part of why the Jazz came out like lackadaisical and they just seemed down. Like it was very lifeless, So it's just, it's just crazy. And guys, please don't. Let's see. Will Bowden. Nobody should $2. Thank you, Will. I appreciate it. Nobody should say the N-word or the R-word again. I agree. But especially white people like me. I'm not going to get into that and who can say what and when and what. Like, white people like me should not ever, ever, ever use a derogatory term like that. Ever. 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 And we should teach our kids that is up there with all the other things you should never say and do. It's just got to be something that we teach our kids. Come on. We can all do better. We have to. And if like the government and leadership in this state is not going to do anything to change it or try to figure out ways to teach why these things are bad, then we've got to do it. We've got to. I don't know. That's all I'm going to go into that. Michael Whelan, $4.99. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. Another shot to thank you for using this space to talk about things that matter so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael. I'm not here to like talk politics, but it happened and it's terrible. And it affected the players tonight. 100%. Like 100%. Let's see. Told my nephew the same thing about bullying today after hearing about this. Fombauer, 18. Thank you, Fombauer. $5. I really appreciate it. And yes, we've got to, like, honestly, if you teach your kids and tell them to call it out when they see it, then they will talk to their friends, and hopefully this kind of spreads. I mean, the idea here, okay, let's just talk about it just a little bit. If your feeling about this is that it's not as bad as people say, or I haven't seen it, so it's not there, it's just, that's not the right viewpoint. It's just not. What the viewpoint needs to be is, this is a horrible thing that happened, and this person is saying these things were going on, and no one helped us out. And instead of just kind of ignoring or saying, no, you're crazy, I've never seen that, we need to listen to them, and we need to find out what happened. We need to find out why it happened, and why nothing was done. And if this is like a rampant thing in Davis County, and especially like the Davis School District, something needs to happen, because guess what? You're not going to be able to stop kids from bullying each other. We should definitely keep trying. We should definitely keep doing everything we can to stop it, teaching our kids, having programs, doing things in schools and reach outs and things like that to help when bullying happens, because bullying is not okay. It's just something that happens, but the more we can teach our kids, the less it will happen. But when you have people saying like, "Hey, there are racist things going on and we need you to stop it." And if the people in the Davis school district just say, "Oh, I didn't, I never seen anything like that," or if worst case scenario, or like worse, they're like seeing it and just allowing it to happen, or like even worse, joining in, it's a problem. So something like this needs to be figured out. You know, a lot of this racism stuff is a cancer. And sometimes it's like a benign tumor that just sits in someone's body, and because it hasn't killed them, you don't root it out, and it's something that you have to cut out. You have to pull it out, and it's going to be painful. It's going to take time, and it's going to be like, you know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But when you have a situation like this and you realize there's a tumor there, and there are people in this school district that are not doing their jobs, and maybe worse, perpetuating, cut them out. Cut the tumor out, you know? And then try to heal. Try to heal. And you know what happens if someone loses their job, or if certain people are fired or let go, then it sends a message. And it lets people know from this day forward, we're not going to let this happen. But when we just say like, "Oh, I've never seen it. then nothing happens. And the status quo is not okay in this situation. It's just not, you know? So anyways, I'm sure that this type of stuff this emotion was lingering with Donovan. And people have mentioned in the chat, I am so sick of it. I personally am so sick of it. I am so sick of having to talk about it. I am so sick of these things happening and reading these headlines and this stuff going on. It's so frustrating. I am so sick of it. Personally, so tired of it, and I'm sure everyone else has. Like, it's so exhausting for this to keep happening. And like, we can't get that little girl back, and worse also, she's autistic. I mean, it's just like, you can't describe a more horrible situation than that. It was so bad, and it just keeps happening. And if we just keep saying that, well, I didn't see it, so, it's not as bad as people say, or blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not working. It's not working. So something has to change. All right. Should we get back to like what happened here? Donovan Mitchell is ejected. Joe Ingles is ejected. He pushed Ed Malloy after the fight with Rudy Gobert and Myles Turner. Sorry, guys. Now I just, it's really hard to talk about basketball sometimes when you start kind of going into those things. It's really rough. And I appreciate you guys caring about it too, because you know what? It's a big deal and it needs to change. Utah is a great place and I love living here, but there are things that go on here, obviously, that need to change. And I don't know. It's got to be better. It's got to be better. I don't know. So, but let's talk about the Jazz a little bit. I do want to talk about the Jazz. And if you're still here, you are awesome, and I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Everyone listening right now live, everyone who watches it after the fact, you're awesome. Let's do our part. Let's really stop. Let's stop saying the status quo is okay, and let's vote for people who are going to do things to fix it. And that means school boards, local mayors, local elections. Let's hold people accountable for what they do. The local elections are as important as any of them, because those are the people that really affect these things. School boards, town halls, things like that. Go to these things. Let them know that this is not okay and this needs to change. And hopefully we can make a change. Anyways, we talked about how bad the refs were. They were bad, mostly because they were not calling. Sometimes they need to call a foul to let the player know, like, hey, I saw that. That shouldn't have happened. There's the foul. And guess what? That makes the player happy. But when like the Myles Turner fouls Rudy Gobert like that, Rudy Gobert retaliates by pulling him to the ground. Myles Turner's mad because he's already mad at Rudy Gobert, and you can see how it escalates, and that's what turned this into this. That's why it's the ref's fault. Yes, it's Rudy Gobert's fault because he instigated with the guy, but if the ref had called the foul, then there wouldn't have been a fight. It's just that's just basic. That's just the fact. Uh as far as the basketball, the Jazz have a few issues. One tonight was the rebounding. It just wasn't good enough. And I wonder if tonight was kind of an emotional loss because of these things we've talked about tonight. Donovan Mitchell continues to play at just an incredible level. 11 for 20 from the field, 26 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. He's just all NBA level right now. He's unbelievable. Mike Conley just didn't have a good game. He got absolutely torched by TJ McConnell all night. It was bad. And I don't know if it was just a low energy night for the Jazz because of this, because that, was horrible. The Joe Ingles stuff is just, he's getting backdoored a lot. And there were a few good signs tonight where he was driving to the rim with the pick and rolls that he hasn't done a lot this year. He at least wasn't just kind of dumping it off right at the top of the free throw line like he's been doing. But Ingles played a little bit better tonight, but defensively he is it's just not there, guys, and it's a struggle. And maybe he'll get ejected, and that'll actually force Quinn to like sit him for a game. But tonight, Joe Ingles, it's like a deceptive, I don't know, 7 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. He was 1 for 4 from 3. He was 3 for 6 from the field, which is an improvement. That's a good sign for him to be driving to the hoop and getting those layups. Cook it up, ZZ. Thank you, my man. $7.99. I really don't understand why everyone has career games against the Jazz. Keelan Martin, Ben Simmons, Eric Gordon, every damn time. Let Jared play. I agree. But thank you, Cook It Up. Thank you so much. And I agree. Here's the thing. The Jazz might have the best rim protection in the NBA on defense, while also having the worst perimeter defense in the league, outside of like Royce O'Neal. Donovan Mitchell's picked it up a little bit, and when Mike Conley's playing hard, he's solid. But the Jazz wings and small forwards and forward defense is putrid. It is so bad. Like, Joe Ingles can't guard anybody. He gets backdoored at least twice a game now. At least. And Bojan Bogdanovic, who before tonight had some really good games. Tonight, Bojan was pretty meh. 3 for 9 from the field, 8 points, 2 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 2 turnovers. That's the playing equivalent of bleh. Really not good. And so it's not great. It was really, and you think about what happened and you wonder if it was. There was a thing at the end of the game that was really weird to me. I do not know why Quinn leans so hard on Joe Ingles. I don't understand. Because there was at one point, Eric Paschall was in the game near the end, and he was absolutely killing it. He was bringing energy. He was making plays. He like grabbed an offensive rebound, big play with a putback. He had a big dunk at one point during the game. His athleticism shows up in really big ways. And the Jazz got within like 5 with him on the floor, and Quinn pulls him after having sat Ingles to bring Ingles back in. And Ingles for this game was a -6, but I felt like it should have been worse because, I mean, he played with the starters when they were like a minus. Donovan Mitchell was amazing in this game, and he was a -15. And that's a case where I think plus minus doesn't show what was going on. But Joe Ingles is just, I don't know. He looks like 10, 15 pounds overweight to me. He's just slow, and I don't know if it's because he played at the Olympics and had a short off season, but guess what? Like a lot of people did, and you've got to figure out how to get back into game shape, I guess. But he just looks so slow and tired. And I mean, there were points at the end of the game where instead of like guarding and playing perimeter defense, he was like trying to touch foul. Like, go watch the end of the game. There was that one where he knew he got beat and he tried to touch foul the guy. The refs didn't call it, and he like, instead of like getting back, he just kind of throws his like, how are you not calling the foul? Like, the refs aren't going to save you, Joe. you can't rely on the refs. And I think the Jazz, I think Rudy Gobert a little bit has been affected by kind of the rule changes and this is one thing with the refs. I hate referees. I hate the dirty zebras. I really hate them. But one thing I will give them credit, and this puts a bad taste in my mouth, uh, is that I have appreciated the not calling fouls for certain things, and it's lowered the amount of foul calls in general. It actually feels like because the refs aren't letting players manipulate them, it's sped the games up too. It's really improved the product. But I do feel like this physical play has affected Rudy a little bit because I think that he goes in and he's expecting these touch fouls and they're just not happening. Or Joe Ingles, who tries to do a touch foul and tries to touch the player instead of guard him and get a foul, and he doesn't and he doesn't get the foul. Like, that's not defense, Joe. I feel like these rule changes with the referees have actually improved the game. Like, we're watching more basketball. James Harden trying to manipulate refs and like learning how to draw fouls is not basketball. And the guys who relied on that have struggled. And so that's one thing Rudy's got to realize, is that you can't rely on referees. And relying on referees, like maybe it worked in the past, is not something you can do and win basketball games, you know? So Rudy's got to just fight through it and just understand it. I mean, it's like Shaq in the old days. Shaq used to get fouled so much, but how many times they actually called it was different than how often he actually got fouled, because he'd get fouled honestly almost every play because Shaq was a behemoth and he just played through it, and he'd get mad, but he would dominate. And Rudy Gobert's got to be like that. You know what? You're not going to get every foul call. It's like, especially with how they're calling it now. He's got to fight through it. Got to fight through it. You just have to. And, you know, it's 90s basketball again a little bit. Physical play is being allowed, and you know, this is a good thing in some ways because it preps you for the playoffs, so that the playoffs are called the same way as the regular season. And I wonder if that's literally the change they made. It said there shouldn't be a difference between regular season and playoffs, you know. So it's good prep for the playoffs, but they've got to fight through it. The Jazz have to be better that way. I think that's pretty much all I had to say tonight. Joe Ingles has to be better. It's been a struggle. Uh, Jared Butler needs to play. Trent Forrest got 3 minutes tonight. I don't know why Quinn's going that way. I don't know why 3 minutes for Trent Forrest is more important than 3 minutes for Jared Butler, but I would like Jared Butler to get those minutes. Also, I might be interviewing Jared Butler on Monday, so that'll be kind of cool. And we'll see if that happens. I've had opportunities like this in the past, and they have fallen through, so we will see. But it should be interesting and pretty cool. So we'll find out, and I'm going to see if I can post that on the channel or if that'll be on SLC Dunk. But if you guys are watching for the first time, if you're new here, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and join the channel too. If you haven't, if you just want to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Let's give a shout out to our all-stars. These are the guys that make things happen. The energy's low tonight. I'm not gonna lie, guys. That stuff makes me sad. It really is a bummer. And if I'm feeling like this talking about it, imagine having to play a basketball game. But let's power through, all right? Let's give a shout out to the GOAT, Jordan Besserell, Ryan Perry, the legend, Baby Elliott Matson, Joshua Hansen, the Danish Destroyer, and one Anton Warren, Ezekiel Ricibe, the man from down under, JT Buckets Wardell, Austin R. Grant, editor extraordinaire, Eric C., the C stands for champion, Donald Schooley, schooling all of us, DW to CB, Darren Williams to Carlos Boozer, Jorge Arrizaga, mi amigo de abajo, Lee Christensen, driving the lane, Justin Ty H, Patrick Akubo, the connoisseur, Robert Hall of Fame, and DW, Jazz going all the way. Key himself, $2. Thank you, my friend. Whiteside giving us twice the production of favors. He really has. Whiteside's been an incredible pickup. Jared Butler was a nice rookie. Second round pick is crazy good for Jared Butler. Whiteside for like a veteran minimum, I think. And then also Eric Paschall, who we might have traded for literally nothing if the picks don't convey. Unbelievable offseason. Really, really good. But the Jazz, you know what? The Jazz need a big trade deadline. They do, because the perimeter defense is not good enough and the rebounding is not good enough. And the Jazz need to The Jazz need to do something to figure that out, and they've got some pieces that might fit, but they also have a redundancy with a lot of guys. And so we'll see what they can do. Justin Zanuck's done a pretty darn good job with his first season as like the guy with no restrictions. It's been awesome. Anyways, guys, like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're on SLC Dunk Podcast, please make sure and go give a rating and review. 5 stars would be much appreciated. Guys, I will talk to you next time.